Go.
Today, on this week's episode of the True Dudes podcast, the Tuesday edition, we're going to cover a couple of things. Steven encounters some big surprises on campus, and he's going to tell us the whole story about that. In the United States news, we have a big breaking story. Apparently, Louder Crowder just had the biggest bombshell revelation in the States. We're going to cover some of that. In American news, Representative Jim Jordan kind of blew the whistle on himself. Trump's polling numbers are kind of showing that Biden's got some real problems on his hands. And in pretty much the story that just will never go away is Israel continues to be the gigantic melting pot that is about to blow up the country. We're going to cover some stories from a cafe that has basically been boycotted, but it has a happy ending, as well as Obama, terrorist something, which we always knew he loved Gaza. And finally, Daniel Smith is platforming somebody. You're not going to believe who it is. You're not going to believe who it is. What a crazy person. Anyways, we're going to cover that and so much more on this week's episode of True Dudes Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to Tuesday News Day.
It's become a thing, man.
I know, we have returned.
Yeah, that's right. And with the vengeance, I now have a new operating system, man. My computer is running Big Sur. It's called Big Sur, and apparently it's running pretty well right now. I was worried it's going to be like super slow, but I haven't had any like major delays. Like usually my system gets a little bit laggy whenever I'm have this many like things open. But yeah, it's been pretty good so far, and I'm pretty happy about it. And you're dressed like the guy from what do you call it, the Blind Side. Remember Big Mike, and like his little brother basically said enough with the rugby shirts already. You look like a giant bumblebee. It was like, huh? Kind of like the rugby shirt. It's like,
yep. So before we jump into anything, Danny, anything interesting from the weekend?
Yes, apparently the Vancouver Canucks are third in the entire league. They're
doing very, very well. Yeah,
I'm impressed actually. Like it's might be just a fluke, but kind of cool to see that a team I was always if there was ever a team that I was ever following in the NHL, it was the Canucks, and I kind of lost pretty much all motivation after their last cup loss against Boston. That was brutal.
Yes,
but yeah, I mean
that was the last. So I actually, because my best friend in high school was a huge Canucks fan. And we made a pact that if the Canucks went into the playoffs, then I would cheer for the Canucks. The Leafs went into the playoffs, and I would cheer for then he would cheer for the Leafs. So it never happened to work out for me, but I did join him for Game 7 against the Bruins.
Mm-hmm. And that was a tough loss. It was such a tough loss.
Yeah, I remember I duct taped I printed out a Vancouver Canucks logo, and I duct taped it to my T-shirt.
I mean, it's the cheapest option to be a bandwagon fan. So it works.
Yeah, no. The guy I remember walking into like a 7-Eleven, and the guy's like, "So you're bandwagoning?" And I'm like, "Yep, I am today."
So hard,
so hard. Good, man. But this is not the only interesting story from the weekend. So over this weekend, so actually it was yesterday, so I come into work, and so this is what I see. So there is, unfortunately I don't have Instagram, so I couldn't get the pictures. But so this was kind of painted around campus. And so on campus we have these rocks, and they're typically painted with stuff, modern events, cool things to support.
And basically like the community board for like the university.
Yeah. And so lately, the rocks have been painted for Palestine. And so on Monday, I came in and I was like, oh, they're painted for veterans. That's cool. I can definitely get behind supporting that. That's great.
Yeah. I mean,
and
not exactly a hard
it was
thing
sort
to
of
get
funny
behind.
because this one, and so this rock in particular, on these poppies that they had on this rock, this poppy and this poppy, there were stickers that said, I'll show you the sticker actually. So the sticker for this was, are you a communist? Then get organized. Marxist.ca/join. Fight back.
These people have literally no respect, whatsoever.
And so, I saw that on the tribute to veterans, and I quickly removed the trash. And then we went sort of like hunting around campus for other stickers and tributes to communists, and we tore them down because no.
My favorite thing is that, like, you have to remember, a lot of veterans today probably fought in a war that was fighting against communism.
Yeah.
If you have a Canadian veteran that fought in Vietnam, he was fighting communism. Yep. If he fought in one of the wars, that was going on before in the 80s, he was fighting communism. If he's a World War II vet, technically he wasn't fighting communism because they were the Allies in the World War II, but right afterwards, Korea, they were definitely the big baddie. So, I mean, talk about having no respect for people who who risked their lives for for change, right?
No,
but also did you notice that there was a thing that was going around, and I saw it on Twitter, and I was like, oh god, I hope they don't make this happen. There was a thing where somebody tried to somebody put a picture where the rainbow groups, whatever.
Yeah.
They started making poppies that were half poppy and half rainbow on the other side. And I was just like, dear Lord, can you
you not already co-opt everything?
You have to hijack everything. Everything has to be about you. It's the most blatant form of hijacking everything. It's like, no. We can't have a single thing that doesn't revolve around us, so we're gonna hijack Remembrance Day too. Even though LGBT people, I can't imagine that they make any significant part of the army.
No,
sorry.
Well, considering especially in the States, they were banned up until, or at least they under Trump they.
They had the don't ask. They had the don't ask.
Yeah, they had the don't ask, don't tell. So
right,
but we should actually go into the stories of the day. Because otherwise we'll talk about our own stuff. Yeah, breaking story from yesterday, but yes.
Well, I saw it live when they were breaking it, and I was like, holy crap, this is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
To the point where I was legitimately, as I'm listening to it, I was like, I'm actually kind of curious what they're going to do with this one, because I'm like, this is like the stick your fingers in your ears and go no, they like that.
Yeah, well, that's basically what the Nashville mayor. That's because he doesn't blast the fact that it was covered up. He blasts the purported leak.
Of course.
So Nashville mayor blasts the leak of Covenant Manifesto. As expert says, withholding docs is wrong. Yes. Yeah. Withholding documents, especially if they're regarding serious issues, is wrong. Day after 3 pages purported to have come from the manifesto of Covenant school shooter Audrey Hale, Nashville mayor Freddie O'Connell is calling the potential leak a violation of the victims' families as the city investigates whether the leak was illegal. Quote, our first thought was to make sure we continue to focus on connecting the families that have been traumatized to resources that can help with that. And then also let's make sure that we have an independent review of how these materials, which are under seal right now, could have found their way outside the legal process. He added that he still could not comment on the veracity of the images, which are photographs of pages of a notebook. So the Metro Nashville Police Department said Monday they could not confirm or deny the legitimacy of the photos, which appeared to have been taken in the Covenant School parking lot, but said they were not MNPD crime scene images. So we covered this back in March and in April.
Yeah, we did. We went over it. I don't know if you can do me a favor here, Steven. Can you go to Twitter when you're done, or even just add a new tab? Just go to Twitter and type in hashtag Nashville Manifesto
Mm-hmm.
should come pretty much right up. And the Manifesto. No, it's now 2 words. It's 1 word.
Oh yeah, because the hashtag.
Yeah, the hashtag.
My bad.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So there's a couple of interesting things here. Like, first of all, Instagram, Facebook, they're censoring this hard. There's there's just a lot of details that keep coming up. Yeah, what?
This is interesting. So Candace Owens, I just
Candace
got word
Owens?
that
I
2
saw that.
officers are due to be fired over the release of the National Manifesto pages.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
The question is whether or not that's true is something that I'm like, okay, I'm really curious about that. I also love how Elon Musk himself
Mm-hmm.
basically hyped this up as well, which is amazing. When he shared,
I had totally forgotten that KJP did this.
Yeah, can you play that? Because that was like,
oh man, this is so egregiously evil.
It's basically glorifying it's basically hijacking a tragedy from the actual victims.
Well, it's exactly what they're doing to Israel, and they're like, oh yes, we have to be concerned about Islamophobia.
Yes. Yeah, so play the video. This shows you
One
how
of the things that we saw during the midterm elections is that people don't want their freedoms to be taken. They want us to fight for their freedoms. And so it is shameful, it is disturbing, and our hearts go out to the trans community as they are under attack right now. And one of the things that we saw...
My goodness, you are horrifying.
Mm-hmm. Basically, a trans shooter went into a school, and we're worried about the trans people.
Mm-hmm.
It's exactly the same kind of language that they used after the after 9/11 attack.
Danny,
9/11 attack.
Now, so we can, of course, we'll link.
Oh, we can't put it up there.
We cannot put it on the stream. So I'm gonna read from it. Anybody who wants it, easy to access. We can tell you where the links are, but we're just gonna read from it.
Yeah.
So, well, that's not even.
No, you have to go to the. He did post it.
Oh, because that was okay. So it's that's a picture of it.
Well, there's 3 pictures that he put.
But I'm trying to get to his post about it.
Just go to the go to his. There it is.
Okay, so just gonna read some quotes from this.
By the way, you have to heavily.
Heavily censor. So,
mm-hmm.
Can't believe it's here. Don't know how I was able to get this far. A little nervous but excited. Several times I could have been caught, especially back in the summer. An hour and 7 minutes away. Can't believe I'm doing this. I hope I'm ready. I hope my victims aren't.
Mm-hmm.
My only fear is if anything goes wrong, I'll do my best to prevent any of the sort. And in brackets, God, let my wrath take over my anxiety. It might be 10 minutes. It might be 3 to 7. It's going to go quick. I hope I have a high death count. Ready to die.
Right.
And then next page. Kill those kids, those crackers, going to fancy private schools with those fancy khakis and sports backpacks, which they're with their daddy's Mustangs and convertibles. F you little turds. I wish to shoot you weak-ass dicks. We are mop yellow hair. I want to kill all you little crackers. Bunch of little...
Effers.
Yep, basically. With your white privileges, F you.
By the way, so one thing that I found out about this thing, this is 3 pages of mountains of things that this person left behind. So, Audrey Hale left behind I think it was 20 notebooks, from what I heard, a suicide note. They also took possibly a 10-minute video on that day, where they actually videotaped themselves. Preparing for this whole thing. Secondly, this person did a ton of research. And why does she choose this school? Because partially because she has a little bit of a link to there, but partially because she knew that it had no official protection. It was like a gun-free zone. And so, and that's why she said, when she pulled out to the parking lot, she's like, I'm going to check for security. If there's security, I'm going to basically bail. Because you have to remember, most of these people who pull these kind of events and all that kind of stuff, they're not brave people. They're not willing to face legitimate threat. They're cowards. And usually what they do is they look for soft targets. And so one of the the claims by a lot of pro-gun Second Amendment people is that if you actually harden these targets and actually put either security guards who are armed or basically empower people at the school who want to be trained and properly licensed to be able to carry firearms, you would basically make these schools a lot more difficult for people like this to attack. And that is a very, very solid, conservative pro-gun, pro Second Amendment talking point. The idea that we need to ban all guns is just such a fingers in the ears, close your eyes, and not try to actually solve the problem. So the one thing that we found out in this manifesto, at least in this release of these 3 pages, is that the shooter was motivated by very clear white supremacist and anti-white supremacist rhetoric. That was the big thing.
Well, and not just anti-white supremacists, but anti-white in general, anti-Christian,
yes,
and generally nuclear family. This is a lot of the stuff that the mainstream left has been speaking out against. If you ask a member of the mainstream left, what is the most evil, section,
the biggest threat, or
the biggest threat to society, and they'll say straight white males.
Yeah. And even Cenk Uygur, when he went on Tim Pool, for the Culture War podcast, he was adamant that oh no, the left wing violence, left wing terrorists, they're just a tiny fringe minority, and right wing violence, they're everywhere, they're massive.
Tim Pool actually had a fairly interesting analysis of this.
After he went back over it.
Well, so today, he was talking about. I think he was talking about the journalist, the man who got beaten, which we're going to talk about, and died later. And so he was saying that the left and right, so the left and their extremism is more broad. So there are more people involved. They are much more willing to commit crimes, and they are a lot harder to escape. The right, if there are members of the right which do get involved in extremism, then it is acute. But because they are usually more highly trained, it's usually the per capita body count for that one person is usually higher because they know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's the same kind of basic demographics that you saw in the Civil War. In the Civil War, the South was populated by people who knew how to shoot guns. They were just very effective, in guns. And the North was mostly a lot of people who worked in factories and had never really fired a gun before. They didn't really know how to use them for the most part. Very similar to that. So yeah, the big thing with this manifesto, people have been saying, the media's been coming out and trying to say that this is too dangerous to release, won't somebody think of the poor families, or it isn't appropriate. But I think the strongest defense against that has always been that in almost every other mass shooting, serious mass shooting in the last 2 years, the manifesto was always released immediately. Pretty much the day of, the Jacksonville shooter, the Charlottesville shooter, the what do you call it, Christchurch shooter, all of them, because they were white supremacy and all that. That very day that manifesto was released. This one, they intentionally kept it hidden, and they basically had no intention of releasing this, even though there's an actual police organization that's been suing the city, the police of Nashville, for them to release this, because it was so important that this had to be released, because they're just because this is like in the public interest. But like, no, they just dragging their feet, couldn't give you a single excuse as to why they were releasing it. It's obvious that people with influence, whether it's in the federal government or in whoever it was putting pressure on the Nashville PD, and they were like not letting this be released. Obviously, because they don't like what it does to their narrative. Their narrative is trans people and people who are like pro-Marxist and pro-leftist and all that. They can't be the dangerous ones. They're the victims. They can never be the oppressors. And so they hate that. They hate anything that gives any credence to the idea that teaching kids in schools that that there's like a genocide of transgender people, that's not dangerous. The teaching kids that white supremacy and white privilege is the most dangerous thing in imaginable. You're creating the very conditions that lead to somebody like Audrey Hill. And so I was a little surprised at how strong the pushback was from the social media and from like news organizations. I knew that they would just try to like not cover it. I didn't realize it was going to be such a massive, like where Google itself blocked search results. That actually did surprise me. I was like, dang, like they're really, really committed to like keeping this story down. It was crazy.
All right.
What do you think about this, Steven?
Yeah, I was trying to set up this whole thing with Twitch so that we could actually like have people contribute.
Okay.
Because apparently Twitch added us to their affiliates program.
Oh, what does that mean?
Well, I got this message, I think it was on Thursday. It says, not all who streamer is dedicated as you. You belong in a new class of streamer known as Twitch affiliates. Take part in the program and start earning. So I'm like, oh.
Well, time to play around with a new toy.
Yeah, so I'll set that up
at some point.
Yeah, some point, maybe tomorrow.
Okay. Well,
but yeah, like
anything
that. Yep. So this was not. So when it was posted, like absolutely unreal how fast it was blocked, and for what rationale it was blocked. So the post from Steven Crowder and others was flagged on Facebook, saying it may go against our community standards on violence and incitement.
Yeah, this is all garbage justification.
Oh, it's absolutely garbage, because this has nothing to do with violence and incitement. Nope. Because it's not saying, oh, like this is the kind of mentality the left creates, we should strike them before. Yeah, that would be violence and incitement. What this is saying this is the kind of individual that gets radicalized by the left, and they took a step. They took it 2 steps further than most radical leftists do. But this is the attitude that a large number of left-wing activists have, and if they had the opportunity, they would do the exact same thing.
Yeah, like the idea of incitement, like, I think it's they're trying to like take the idea of like, copycats and say like, oh, we don't want copycats. I'm like, well, that rationale just gone. It's been 8 months since the shooting. Any copycats are long gone. And if you're going to say that, like, we want to avoid copycats, then why is the media, why is Google, or all the big, like, media conglomerates, like the whole, like, machine, why are they totally fine with putting on, like, nonstop coverage of any kind of shooting or any kind of, like, like a thing that was way too big or something like that. So, yeah, don't give me that crap.
Yep.
Yeah, so anyways. So it was a big thing where I'm looking forward to seeing like what happens in the future. But let's hope that let's hope that this is not the end of it. I think there's going to be more revelations in the coming days. But this was a big one, so I'm glad that it's back. And by the way, guess who's back, Steven?
Guess who's back?
The Fly. The Fly is back on your screen. It keeps coming back and forth.
It does keep going.
I'm telling you, man.
Yeah, no, like there's literally one fly, and it keeps like just crawling around my camera, and I have no idea flipping why, and it just does not leave my camera. I think it's because my camera has a little blue light, and it's like,
Oh,
ooh,
okay.
blue light. And I'm like, go away, you stupid thing.
Just keeps coming back.
All right.
All right, man. So I think we covered this. So let's go to the story
so
about
from the National
Mike
Catholic Register. So Jimmy Kimmel and Rolling Stone mock speaker Mike Johnson for using covenant eyes. It is only in a world such as broken as ours, such a noble testimony of trust between a father and son could be so twisted and belittled.
Mm-hmm.
So humility, that's what the current Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, emphasized when he and his wife Kelly interviewed us about our marriage mentoring program, Witness to Love. So it's especially sobering and unsettling to read headlines like this today attacking the Johnson family's use of Covenant Eyes accountability software. Mike Johnson admits he and his son monitor each other's porn intake in resurfaced video. And Mike Johnson said he and his son monitor each other's porn usage, and yeah, it's exactly as weird as it sounds. The mocking of Mike's love for his son continues on Jimmy Kimmel Live, so if his son looks at porn, his dad gets an alert. If Mike looks at porn, his son gets an alert. Kimmel continued. The late night hope then noted to laughter from his audience. It's possible to be too close with your children. So,
Yeah,
this...
such a terrible view.
Well, it's such a ridiculous mockery. Mm-hmm. Because anybody who actually knows what these programs are about, it has nothing to do with, what porn are you watching? Yeah. Like, that's the sort of stuff that Hunter and Joe would send to each other.
That's most likely, yeah.
Well, I think they had sent some stuff like that to
I
each
remember,
other. Yeah.
I remember seeing
it was
you're
kind of messed up. But, this program is not for sharing what kind of porn you like to watch.
It's an accountability software.
It's an accountability because you, Mike Johnson, wants to ensure that he's setting a good example for his son.
It's called parenting.
It's parenting.
It's not even out of the norm. Like, people made fun of Mike Pence for the Pence rule.
For the Pence rule,
right? Okay, the Pence rule is a little bit more. It's a more intentional effort to be above reproach, right? Not every Christian I know follows that.
Not every Christian, but for those who are in public, for pastors and for politicians, this is a good rule to have because it keeps you far, far away from any thought of scandal.
From even the implication of scandal.
Yeah, even the implication of scandal, because if you are never going to be in a room alone with another woman or another man, then guess what? You are not going to be attacked on the basis of, they were alone together. It's no, we weren't. We had this person, and this person. It's I can't really accuse you of potential infidelity because everybody knew about it. That this wasn't happening.
And there's something really skeevy about this because Jimmy Kimmel is not exactly a moral, he's not a morally upright person in any way. People can go back to his days on the Man Show and they can find some pretty terrible things that he did on the Man Show, right? So he's not exactly this highly moral person. And what he's mocking is the idea that parents are a parent taking an active role in protecting their
child's life is creepy.
Because Jimmy Kimmel, like a lot of leftists today, believe that not only is it normal for children to watch porn, but they should be they should be given full reign and complete freedom to not only watch as much porn as they want, but also they should be allowed to sleep with anyone they want. That is the leftist view.
Well, because it's the leftist view that a child is able to make these decisions on their own, and that the parents should just butt out because it's their decision. And then on top of that, it's the leftist view that any sort of restrictions on your child's behavior is abusive.
No, they believe that if there's the talking point they always use is what are you going to do? You're never going to stop them from having sex. They're going to have sex. It's this view of people are animals and they're just going to
and you might as well just let them live to their desires.
Yeah. Just give them 100 condoms and that's the most responsible thing you can do. The idea that people believe that there's no such thing as self-control when it comes to sex, it's mind-blowing.
I can tell you about a conversation that I had with this guy. And so I was like, we were talking about the stuff that happened with the Million March for Children. He's like, well, why are you so opposed to this stuff being presented in schools? I'm like, well, they're not ready for it. Like, they're not mentally mature enough. And he's like, well, you're never going to be able to stop them from accessing porn. And I'm like, hold up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you, as a parent, encouraging your children? And he's like, well, like, I might not be encouraging it. Like, I'm not going to direct them to the websites. But if they do it, then, more power to them. And I'm like, how old are your kids? And he's like, well, that's none of your business. But they're like, they're not in high school yet. And I'm like, and you're okay with your children potentially watching porn if they're not in high school? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, that's none of my business. I'm like, it is very much so your business, and you were an abusive parent for not caring.
It's like, it's like a parent. It's like anything. It's like oh, you're never going to be able to stop them from smoking. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be able to stop them from taking drugs. You're not going to be able to this is like an abdication of any kind of effective parent.
It's basically just saying, well, it's too difficult, so I might as well not even try.
Yeah, is it difficult to protect your kids from being able to access that? Does it take a lot of work and a lot of intentional effort? Yes, it does.
Well, and it takes more effort now than it ever did before.
Yes, absolutely.
Even protecting children from what's available on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember there was, like, the kids are watching something, and I was kind of casually keeping an eye on it. And, like, there was this one segment on YouTube Kids, and it was like, oh, Rainbow Friends. And I'm like... And I look, and it's like, well, this person doesn't have a gender. And I'm like, nope, that's not happening.
Yeah,
and so like my kids are like, oh, like why did you turn that off, Daddy? And I'm like, this is a concept that you guys are not ready for. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and
speaking of children, what's up, buddy?
Becky has been getting the Switch, and all
right. Well, kids, it's time for all of you to go to bed. Okay, you can say hi if you want. All right. Becky, you
say Curtis. Hi, Curtis. Hi. Hi, hello there.
There's a delay, Curtis, because it's... Because right now, buddy, this is what you see in real time, and then this is what you see that other people see on the internet. So, off you go. To bed. Good night, buddy.
Bed, little monkey. See you, Curtis.
Off you go, buddy. Okay, come on. But yes, Curtis, I'm talking about protecting you from online predators, and then you're just exposing yourself to online predators.
They're everywhere, Steven. They're everywhere. All right, well, let's move on from the next story because
we do need to keep moving on because I have not mentioned this, but I do start much earlier for work now.
Yeah,
and so I cannot be staying on until like 10:15, 10:30.
Yeah, we gotta make this happen.
So, all right, moving on to the next story.
Washington Examiner story. So let's do that.
Washington Examiner. So, the American Academy.
I heard about this one.
Yep. So all politicians have bad ideas. Donald Trump's bad ideas take a particular character. They lack conservative disposition in key respects. His proposal for a federally funded anti-woke free university is rooted in all those typical Trumpian errors: over-centralization, lack of prudence about the future, and a simplistic concept of both governmental finance and education. In the name of a massive higher education overhaul, Trump said he will create the American Academy by taxing, fining, and suing excessively large private university endowments, and then creating an endowment from which to fund his new institution, which will make world-class education available to every American free of charge. He promises that it'll be strictly non-political and there'll be no wokeness or jihadism allowed. They're pretty good ideas here. But, so, yes, he's totally right that colleges have been overrun by intolerant left-wing ideologues whose radical politics damage the country and interfere with the proper functions of academia. But it's the height of folly to think that he can fix these problems by creating a government-run school.
I think that the ultimate thing is like, that it's a good idea because you're trying to create like a couple things. One that you're trying to make this so that it's available to a lot of people, for free. That is, it's supposed to be paying for itself. That's the other thing he announced, and that it provides like basically the ability to get degrees when you need it without going into like massive debt. All the things that I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. However, the problem with this kind of thing is like it's not a long-term solution. Even if he installed it during his 4 years tenure, if he was elected president, that's pretty much as long as it would probably be able to maintain itself as like that's anti-woke.
Yeah.
Pretty soon after that, it would pretty much be taken over by.
Well, yeah, and they mentioned that further down in this article, where it's like, so if he did this, and then the moment the Democrats took over, any religious instructions would be banned, the whole workforce would become unionized, the DEI and ESG indoctrination would become mandatory.
Yeah, it's like you're not actually solving the problem.
Yeah,
it's
like every conservative agrees, or at least all mainstream, every single mainstream conservative will agree that big, like the higher education, that whole debacle.
It's corrupted.
Is corrupted. It has serious problems, and what it was designed to do, it is no longer doing. It is designed, of course, to be the kind of the bastion of higher education, of like open ideas and learning and having open dialogue, and none of that happens, especially in the major institutions where they openly ban free speech and they prevent speakers that they disagree with from even coming to campus. And if they do come to campus, then they try and ding them with $40,000 speaking fees.
Yeah, it's a comprehensive problem, like one that is system wide, and it goes back to that whole talking point about the Marxist strategy of the long march through the institutions. They've taken over like so many major institutions, like Harvard, like Yale, like Columbia, like the one in the West Coast. I forget what it's called. But all these big name institutions, and the problem is there's too many of them now. They're pretty much infected so deeply, and there's so many people in there that are very dedicated, like neo-Marxists, that it would be very difficult to pretty much like dismantle the system very quickly. You'd have to really you'd have to really make a massive difference in a massive change that would take years to be able to implement. So it's not going to be solved with a quick university. I like the sentiment. I think it's nice, but I just don't see it as being a very effective way of long term, solving the problem. But if a couple people, let's say maybe a few thousand people benefit from it in the time that is there, I'm like, great. Let's it's still a net positive. It's just not going to be a comprehensive solution that I think will.
Yeah, I think there's going to be major issues with paying for it.
Yeah.
There's enough video evidence that eyewitnesses for murder charges, even a coroner's report. Oh, that's going to be a story that we're going to be addressing later on in the show, Master Voltaire. And I'm not exactly certain why the text is not updating. I will try and address that, because it hasn't updated for quite some time. So it might just be that way. I can't really adapt and change things in a live stream. But yeah, we will address the bullhorn later on in the show.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. Well, let's go to the next story here, Stephen.
Yeah.
Let's go to the story about Jim Jordan. Who did not become the Speaker of the House, but I think it's probably... I think, honestly, I think he probably prefers it, because then he can focus on the thing.
Like he is better in terms of his role, where he is not like beholden to trying to make deals with the Democrats.
Yeah,
like it's something that, yes, we got Mike Johnson. He seems like a very upright and decent individual.
It's potential there. That's the best way I can put it.
There's potential, but Jim Jordan, like, he didn't have, I don't know exactly what committees he was on, but Jim Jordan had a bunch of committees under his belt, And if he was speaker, then he would have been sidelined from doing that.
Yeah,
and this is where Jim Jordan is needed.
Yeah, exactly.
So
what did he uncover?
Yeah, so from his tweet, bombshell report on the censorship industrial complex. Hundreds of secret reports show how DHS and CISA, the GEC, State Department, and Stanford, this is interestingly, we were just talking about higher education in Stanford, and others work together to censor Americans before the 2020 election, including true information, jokes, and opinions. So the federal government disinformation experts at universities, big tech, and others work together so the Election Integrity Partnership to monitor and censor American speech. According to one EIP member, the EIP was created at the request of CISA. Head of the EIP also said the EIP was created after working on some monitoring ideas with CISA. So this is messages that they had between them. So here's how it worked. Stakeholders, including the federal government, would submit misinformation reports. EIP would analyze the report and find similar content across platforms, and they would submit the report to big tech, often with a recommendation on how to censor. So they found this information in the past. And who was targeted? So Trump, Tom Tillis, Newt Gingrich, Mike Huckabee, Sean Hannity, Newsmax, Michelle Malkin, Rubin Report, Flames
Report
goes on. But yeah,
James,
so true information, jokes, and political opinions. Here are a few examples. So Georgia County is using same software as Michigan counties, also encounter glitch. So this was the same day as, this was election day, I believe. And then Tom Tillis, thank you for this historic victory, North Carolina. Looking forward to 6 more years of fighting for you and your family in the U.S. Senate. So I'm not sure why that was censored.
But those were examples of things that were censored for some reason or another.
Yeah.
What's that one?
Oh, no, this one is... Oh, yeah, so polling is going smoothly, but Philadelphia's rampant problems is Democratic Attorney General Shapiro, who is on the ballot giving them cover. We are documenting and handling this. So that is labeled misinformation.
Yeah, because
and it's
you
like,
can't...
well, that's opinion.
No, you know what it is? You know what it is that there's a new label that they came up with. It's malinformation. You know what that is? Malinformation is basically when the information that's being shared is factually true, but it's like devastating to the case. It's like like it breaks the narrative. Like they can't debunk it or label it as like as untrue or as unfactual, but they're like, yeah, but it's still not helpful for us, and so we're just gonna call it like a malinformation. The big thing here is that we were I think Dan Bongino was really pointing this out before, is that what they've done for a while it's not so much that we don't know that they're doing it or that it's not an open secret, is that whether or not you can find the documentation to make this link really obvious. And I think that's what the beauty of what Jim Jordan has exposed. What they've done for years and how it works is the government, they know that they cannot censor speech directly. They can't do it. Okay, it's illegal. It's built into the system. The First Amendment prohibits the government from penalizing speech. But they have a vested interest in blocking and censoring all sorts of speech. And so what they're doing is they're basically like working with third parties, like usually like third parties with some level of legitimacy, like Stanford, and they basically like tell them like here's the people that we that are working against our narrative and our power and our control. And so they give them a list and they start like sending them to these like third parties, and then these third parties will essentially then start sending these lists to big tech, who will basically do their bidding on their behalf. So Facebook, Google, YouTube, and Instagram, they all follow the same basic idea. So when people when they had like the Twitter files and like Twitter execs come in and try to have to defend what they were doing, they would always talk about how oh yeah, no, we weren't forced. We like, this is something we already wanted to do. It's like, that's what you say because everyone on the inside who knows the system, is playing the game, they all know how it works. They're basically like shaking hands behind closed doors in order to censor. So this is basically why a lot of people have like compared this to fascism, because fascism is basically like the cooperation between the government and corporations in order to accomplish the same goals. Like it's a simplification, but that's essentially how it works. Authoritarianism through corporate and government control.
Yep.
And so like that's
cronyism.
Yeah. So right now we're seeing that being exposed. I'm hoping that this leads to more things and hopefully some real changes. So let's keep it up.
Yep.
All right. What else did we reveal, Stephen?
What else did we reveal? Well, so this is
what else has been revealed?
What else has been revealed? So this is an interesting story out of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania County promises accurate tally after clerical error appears to flip votes for judges. So voting machine company's clerical error caused votes in an eastern Pennsylvania county to appear to be flipped on a ballot question that asked whether a pair of incumbent state judges should be retained. Voters were asked whether to decide whether Pennsylvania Superior Court judges Jack Piniella and Victor Stabile, I'm assuming it's Stabile, should be retained for an additional 10-year terms. The yes or no votes for each judge were switched on a summary display for voters before they cast their ballots, said Charles Dertinger, Northampton County Director of Administration, and voter marked yes to retain Piniella or no on Stabile. For example, was reflected as a no on Piniella and a yes on Stabile. Voters noticed the error to be printed on the printed voter records produced by the touchscreen and brought it to the attention of poll workers shortly after the start of voting Tuesday morning. Despite the glitch, voters' actual choices were properly recorded by the machine's back-end system. Their votes will be tabulated accurately. We totally believe that.
Totally believe you, AP. By the way, you know what this reminds me of? There's a scene from The Simpsons where Homer goes into the booth and he votes for like I don't know who ballot in that episode, but it's like I think he votes for like the conservative candidate. It's like okay, like 1 vote for like Obama. It's like 2 votes for Obama. It's like what's going on? It's like and he gets all mad because like that's the joke. The joke is whether or not these machines are trustworthy. Now, I know that people, ever since the 2020 election, a lot of people have tried to make the case like, okay, the Dominion lawsuit pretty much proved that these machines were not switching votes. I'm like, okay, so here's the big picture you have to remember. Like, voting machines have vulnerabilities. And there's some serious issues on how easily these kind of machines, these kind of systems can be hacked, can be undermined. And as we saw in the Arizona election, like that happened like recently, how easily you can essentially intentionally clog or disable the machines in order to achieve like certain ends and all that. So the problem here is not like, like we have evidence of like, widespread, like, fraud.
Yeah.
The problem is that there's the potential for fraud and you're not taking enough safeguards to cover it. So you can see here by the AP, they're trying to basically like in their story, trying to say like, nothing to see here, folks, nothing to see here. No problem, no biggie, nothing bad happened. We're just going to keep going and we're not even going to look into it. And that's not how you create confidence in elections. That's how you create suspicion and a lot of doubts in elections by not addressing the very serious problems or potential of fraud or cheating. So I don't know what you think, Steve.
No, like this is so they can claim that these issues do not affect elections. And the truth is that a lot of the things regarding election integrity are a good portion of his speculation simply because the investigations weren't allowed to occur. Because we see things that are very, very troubling and that are very, very questionable. And then when we go to question them and go to investigate them in court, as people have a right to do because they should be concerned about the integrity and the validity of their elections, then the courts throw them out because they're like, well, this is only, like, they may have been problematic, but it was only a small batch. And it's like, but the problem is if there's a whole bunch of small issues, then that can theoretically change the course of the election. And if you want people to trust the outcome of elections, then you need to actually go through. And that's part of the reason why I oppose the usage of voting machines so much, in that voting machines can have a large degree of error because it's all based on how the voting machines read it.
Yes. And there's this is nothing new, by the way. Like back in before the 2016 election, Elizabeth Warren and a lot of Democrats were even like ringing the going on TV and saying like, we have to really be careful with voting machines because there's some serious concerns about how protective how difficult it is, or how
Mhm.
easy it is to basically rig or manipulate or to cheat using these systems. By the way, like one of the guys is constantly demonized. What's his name? The My Pillow guy.
Mike
Mike Lindell.
Lindell.
Mike Lindell. He actually had a very solid point in one of the interviews I saw him making. Is that there's software now that they can use in elections that can essentially monitor and check that whether or not a machine has gone online or not. Because that's one of the big talking points. It's like they always say, like, no, none of these machines ever go online. They can be accessed remotely or something like that. But we're just told like we just got to trust them. They're like, oh, just trust us. Like this has never gone online or anything like that. But apparently, there's like an actual software that's been developed, like some kind of a technology that is able to guarantee that these machines can never basically like go online, and if they do, they'll know. And so it's a way of guaranteeing that one of the potential security issues with these machines has been neutralized. And I'm like, those are the smart ideas that I want to see. Because rather than just saying, like, trust us, it's all good. I'm like, no, actually, maybe do something to show us that these things are not going to happen again, and that you're going to actually take precautions to avoid them. One of the things that pisses me off about the Arizona election, which was like a microcosm of the American one, is that every issue that people saw, every single issue that you saw in that election, from like I totally believe intentionally misprinted or jammed up machines, because that was like it's such a dumb mistake to make that it's got to be like on purpose, or like you talk about like all the different ways that they manipulated like the election or something like that, or they had like the lady in charge of the elections in the state of Arizona was also on the ballot. All of these things, all these problems. Not one of them has been fixed to the point where, like, that's never going to happen again. Not one of them. They don't have legislation that's going to fix the problem. They don't have any kind of like safeguards. They haven't done anything. And so this is why I think that the whole language about the 2020 election is so stupid. They basically tell you like, nope, it was a perfect election. Nothing possibly went wrong. I'm like, no. There's two issues. Number one, was there or wasn't there not cheating or fraud? Obviously there was, and we like it's more about quantity rather than about like presence of it. But the big issue, I think, the one that people always forget, it's whether or not there was cheating. There was the perception of cheating, and that is the key thing that needs to be addressed. And that's why the people who are telling us, like, that it's immoral and wrong to question the 2020 election, that's why they're basically creating the very mistrust that they claim is so bad, because they're not actually addressing the issues. They're not doing anything to address the problems. They want to keep those problems there, and they want to make sure that they can do them again if they feel like it. And so, of course, people are legitimate. Like, anybody who was told, like, you can't criticize the election, I'm like, no, sorry. You are a reasonable person, and they're gaslighting you into believing that, no, you can't even believe that there's any shenanigans. No, that's not true. If there's obvious things that happened, none of which I've seen any legitimate concerted effort to sure that they don't happen again.
Yeah.
Of course, people are going to be very distrustful. Anyways, we can go on there.
Yeah. So that's well, like the one thing, and this is, I usually rarely say this, but this is one thing which Canada does actually better than the United States.
At least federally.
Federally, yes. Provincially and municipally, they basically have the same protocols.
Yes.
But federally, they do have a very provincially and federally. It's just municipally that has the problem.
Yeah.
Because municipal is the only one. The city of Calgary is the only one that uses voting machines.
And it was also the one that had some serious.
There were some questions.
Very suspicious.
Well, the fact that like the difference between polling and actual outcome was like 20-point spread. It was
massive. Yeah, and it was
because it was like I think it was like 27-27 in terms of like support for the mayoral candidates, and then once it was like decided, it was like it's like 45 to like 21.
It wasn't even close.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, everybody was like, "This is super suspicious."
Mm-hmm.
Now the problem is like, it's like, how do you basically like prove that shenanigans happened, and that's very difficult with a system that's not that where you're not able to actually to vet. Like that's one of the problems I find with the with these systems, particularly Dominion and all these other ones, is that all the software code is completely private. Like you're not allowed to actually look into it. So you can't actually do the proper recounts or the proper kind of checking on these systems that you normally would want to ensure that everything was like honky dory. No. It's the systems are intentionally they're sold as above reproach and like, oh no, they're computer system. They can't be wrong. And I'm like, well, is there any way to check? It's like, no. Oh, okay, well, you just got to trust that the system, that the algorithm is perfect,
Because that always works. You just got to trust that the system is perfect.
That's a good way to run elections. Anyways, speaking of running elections, let's talk about the political story.
All right, so
sounds like what I said last week seems to be coming to fruition.
Yeah, I have. I'm just gonna throw this in there. I was just saving this.
No,
I was saving this.
Yeah, I know. I know this part of the.
Well, it's the same poll.
Yeah, it's the same. Okay, go for it.
Okay, polling data shows Biden trading Trump in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and Pennsylvania amongst voters, while leading in Wisconsin. Combining the data from all 6 states, Trump led Biden by 48% to 44%. The numbers improve a bit for Biden if only likely voters are counted. But Trump remains ahead everywhere except Wisconsin and Michigan. The 6 states polls have proved decisive in the Electoral College in recent election, a trend that is expected to continue in 2024. President's numbers were likely to be disappointing for him and his campaign. A number of important demographics, including amongst voters under 30, Hispanics, African Americans, and urban voters, and a remarkable sign of gradual racial realignment between the two parties. The more diverse the swing state, the further Mr. Biden was behind, and he led only in the whitest of the 6.
I thought that was really interesting, actually. In fact, like, he's winning only among white voters. Which,
So most damning for Biden were the numbers in which the country was on the right track or the wrong direction. At least 60% of the voters in each state said the nation was headed in the wrong direction. Amongst independent voters, Biden held a slight edge over Trump, 39% to 37%. The percentage of those polled who said they would vote for another candidate, the choices where Biden and Trump ranged from 2% in Nevada to 6% in Georgia. So, Trump's now to replace some weaknesses. 44% of the voters in every state poll said there was not really any chance that they would support Trump. Biden's numbers were worse, with 47% of the voters in every state saying there was not really any chance they would support Biden, including majority 52% in both Pennsylvania and Nevada.
Yep.
So,
again, I think the big thing is that the numbers are pretty damning right now. Like, I think right now, even Ben Shapiro was saying, like, if Trump would, like, were to just kind of like not make a big splash and let Biden basically bury himself, like, he's got a fairly like legitimate chance at, like, taking a real like winning the election. Now, here's the other thing to add to the equation, and then I'll let you go into this one.
So this is the pictures, the swing states where Trump is leading, and so don't have it.
What are you looking for?
No, that was So it's
not
in the. So there we go. Yeah. So it's the same poll. So the best news for Biden is that a sliver of voters in these pivotal states that if Trump were to convicted in one of the 4 criminal cases against him, it might sway them to back Biden. If Trump gets convicted, about 6% of voters in these swing states told pollsters they would switch their votes to backing Biden, according to the Times poll. And that would put him in the... If 6%... Like, if Trump lost 6% and Biden gained, that would be a win in every single district. So...
Yeah. The theory there is that, the trajectories that we're seeing right now will eventually, lead to that going forward. This is why I'm saying, like, the whole idea of, like, Trump and whether or not he's got a chance to win or whether or not he's got a good chance to win, it is way too complicated of a thing at this point, to be able to predict those kind of things. Like, for one thing, we know that Biden, I'd be willing to bet money that he's not going to be the nominee when the time comes.
Because if they had the problem for the Democrats is that, like, as of today, because when is election day next year? I believe is November 7th.
It is, yeah.
Oh wait, no, it's because it's every Tuesday, so it wouldn't be the 7th. It would probably be the 8th.
Oh, it changes?
No, because it's the first Tuesday in it's like the first or second Tuesday in November.
Okay.
So it's Tuesday, November 5th.
Okay.
So it's because it's like that's the law, is that it's the first one. So, and this was the first Tuesday in November. So,
okay,
it's just the way it works.
There's a lot of questions obviously going forward. If Trump gets convicted, will he lose a lot of support, among his supporters? If RFK Jr. goes in and as a third party candidate, will he pull more from Trump or will he pull more from Biden? If what are the states going to be able to, or going to make the effort to remove Trump from the ballot? Is that going to be an effective strategy? And are they going to be able to legitimately? Because the big question is whether or not states have the ability to do that. Because long story short, if states can decide if somebody can be on the ballot, that would basically completely throw a nuclear bomb into elections. Because an individual state can essentially swing an entire election by doing that. And that would be so the idea that we would go that America would go that way would be like nightmare fuel. So there's a lot of open questions. However, it is pretty undeniable right now that Biden is really hemorrhaging support.
Biden is terrible.
And he's just getting worse.
Yep.
And I know that he's supported. The only reason I believe fully that Biden is not doing worse in these polls and he's not doing worse in his approval rating is because of the media blitz and the incredibly strong media effort to hold this corpse up. Right? They're constantly trying to talk about how great he is, because they have to, because they want their horse to win. And I think the only reason why Trump isn't doing better than he is because the media and all the lawfare and all the other things are trying to make him pay for opposing the system, essentially, right? In a normal year, I think this basically would be a cakewalk. Trump would walk in
if media. So we know, based on the fact that the New York Post article was censored, that dropped about 10%.
Yep.
And so, yes, we know that if the media was fair, if big tech was fair, that if there was no censorship of information, then there would not, despite the fairly large speculations into the low millions about the amount of questionable ballots in the 2020 election. So even with that, 10% would have overwhelmed that.
Yeah, it's just too big of a
it's too big of a margin. It's too big of a margin.
Even if you can manage some sort of shenanigans, you can't do it on that scale. This is why they don't even attempt it in states where they don't attempt it in Florida. They don't try it in Texas. They definitely don't try it in Midwestern states where it's like a cakewalk because it's too big of a margin to make. Whereas they try to do it in these states because couple thousand.
Well, because they going in, going in,
Yeah.
these states are toss-ups.
Yes.
And if it's a toss-up, then it's like, well, we can sort of play it off as, well, nobody really knew how this state was going to end up. Like, if they had done this sort of stuff in Texas, and yes, Texas is turning more blue, but to have Texas actually come out with a win for the Democrats or a win for Biden
That's a long ways away.
That'd be a really long shot.
That's a long way away. That's not going to happen.
Well,
definitely
like,
not by
yeah,
the
like let me know when Beto wins something in Texas,
Yeah,
and then you
terrible.
could tell me that a Democrat wins a federal election in Texas.
Right. So what some people said is that even amazingly enough, the ladies on The View, like with the worst politically, like vacuous people ever, but even they were saying like one of the problems right now with trying to put somebody else into the Democrat side of the race is that they may be running out of time because
that would be my statement.
Gavin
Gavin Newsom
might not be able to, because he might not have enough time to be able to be put on the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, that means that they're stuck with Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing: if even Cenk Uyghur, who I don't see him as like an intellectually honest person, but
No.
even he can, because he's all about self. What do you call it? Like he wants the Democrats to win because he ultimately believes that Democrats are right, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if even he is so convinced that even Biden cannot win, that he's doing an actual presidential nomination, whatever, just to try to convince people to get like
ditch Biden.
Get then you can tell like Biden is going to be a nuclear bomb. The question is, who is going to be, what's going to be stronger? Is Biden's disastrous presidency going to sink him, or is Trump's legal, like, are all the efforts to basically disqualify and delegitimize Trump?
Well, like it's been interesting watching the American like electoral system over the past few years. So like if we're talking about Canada, Canada typically will elect leaders that they support for their policies or for things that they like about them.
Yep.
The United States, in the past few elections, these have been elections where they're not voting necessarily for a candidate, they're more so voting against a candidate. So if we look at the election of 2016, the election of 2016 was more the response to Hillary Clinton and the Democrats being arrogant, entitled windbags than it was, because in 2016 there were a lot of people who were like, well, I don't know what Trump's gonna do, and like I don't know what's gonna happen, but I hate Hillary, and I'm not gonna do that. And like a lot of people in the United States did feel that way in 2020. Like a lot of Democrats and a good portion of independents did feel that way about Trump. Now, of course, there are questions about the kind of the contested states, but they're in the states that Biden won, like California and New York. He won by tens of millions of votes.
Because they're leftist states, of
course. Yeah, they are leftist states. But these are elections about the person who is hated less wins the election. Now, the question remains of that, will the Trump convictions make Trump hated more than Biden's terrible economy and terrible job record? That's up in the air. Yeah. But judging by the previous polling the previous election results that we have seen, it seems that Trump is still hated more.
Well, I don't know, like, because like a lot of people believed that all of the stuff that's happening to Trump, all these delegitimization efforts would hurt like really, really heavily in the polls. But that's not been the case, actually. Like the polls have all been favoring Trump over the last couple of months. And the polls obviously have been favoring Trump as well in the in primary, like the whole primary thing as well. The question is whether or not that will continue into if he wins the nomination, and even then, I don't know. I have a feeling that I can't see anything particularly that's going to turn things around for Biden. I just don't see it. And the only question then is how much how's the American public going to respond to Trump?
Mm-hmm.
And so the real question is the trends and whether or not people are pissed off enough that they want to go back to they don't like Trump, but they know that Biden is a poison pill. Like it's a poison pill. So okay, let's take the next story and then we'll move on from there.
Yep. Well,
let's go to
things that are at an end. So Zelensky begs United States for cash on credit to be paid back after the war. Sure, dude, sure.
Poor dude, poor guy.
So Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky begged for more money in an interview with MSNBC's Meet the Press on Sunday. So here you go. This is what he says.
He does it in English.
You can't give us some financial support. Okay, please give us a credit, and we will give you back money after the war.
After the war,
which
we will definitely lose
forever.
We will win the war. Really, you're going to win the war? No, you're not.
We're totally going to come out on top. Very on top.
If Russia is threatened, they won't nuke us.
Yeah,
it will totally be a non-issue. We will take them over.
We will fight to the last man. And we're running out of men quick, so
we're running out of men quick. Yeah. Yeah, this is just like,
yeah.
Okay, Mr. Zelensky, you clearly just do not want it into war. And then on top of that, he also declared that the election next year in Ukraine is effectively canceled.
Yeah, of course.
And that elections are no more until the end of the war. And I wonder why you want to continue the war, Mr. Zelensky.
I mean, it's good to be dictator. I mean, you get all the perks. You got all the perks, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well,
this is dictator numero uno versus dictator numero dos. And,
that's right.
I just don't care. I'm like,
it's funny,
you're both corrupt, egotistical morons, and I hate you both. Yeah.
It's so funny, people. Okay, and we're gonna talk about Israel next, but people been saying it's like they try to blur the lines between Israel and Hamas, and which one's more evil, which one lies more, and all that. I'm like, that only applies in the Ukraine-Russia war, where both sides are equally both sides have serious issues.
Have
serious problems and dictatorial things, but nobody called for a ceasefire in the Ukraine-Russia war. Nobody did ever. And secondly, nobody's even making the case that there's some kind of moral equivalency. It's like Russia bad, Biden, or sorry, not Biden. The Freudian slip, right? Putin bad. That's it's so simple in that one. But no. With Israel Hamas, it's so complicated. How can anybody make any kind of moral judgments in that one? It's tough, Stephen.
Oh yeah, there was an article a while back, and it was like, why are we expected only in this conflict to take a side? And it's like, what? You've been demanding that people take a side in the Ukrainian conflict. You demand that people take a side in this conflict. It's only in Israel versus Hamas where you're like, people shouldn't have to take a side because it's like, well,
nobody should have to condemn Hamas.
Nobody should have to condemn terrorists.
That's so unfair.
Yeah, so unfair that people are forced to condemn terrorists. But speaking of interesting stories from Israel, so let's give a brief update on the war. Israeli army reaches the heart of Gaza, traps senior-most Hamas leader in bunker, IDF says, tightening the noose. Good.
Let's keep it up. Keep it up, people.
Yep. Oh, I was actually commenting because there was a little picture that I saw today. Because Facebook is really, really pushing the, when you, you're, of course, on a social media fast.
Yeah, so I haven't been...
You haven't been noticing this, but I scroll through Facebook and it'll be the suggested pictures are all the Palestinian children, or it'll be there was a picture where it was a Palestinian man and he was using a sling to throw rocks at Israelis. And I'm like, all right, well, you partially finished off the terrorists, go all the way. And he's like, that seems a little harsh. And I'm like, no, it's not.
No.
If he's attacking Israelis, nope. You made your bed. You sit in it.
Okay, I think what happens is what happens is, there's a rule in leftism. Okay, like there's the matrix, like the oppressor and oppressed matrix, right? And one of the rules in leftism, in the leftist coalition, is that if you're part of the oppressed class or the oppressed group, everything you do is nice and legal. You can get away with pretty much anything. It's like Christmas. It's like Peter Griffin when he created Pretoria, and he basically had diplomatic immunity. He could be on the street. He can punch a Jew. He can steal French fries from McDonald's. Like everything's legal for him and all that. And I think what happens is the Hamas conflict points it's the most complete fulfillment of that idea. Everything Gaza does, everything the Hamas does is totally okay, totally legitimate, totally justifiable. They're just freedom fighters. They're just trying to break out and against this oppressive force. They're just fighting for their families. You know that everything they can behead as many Israelis as they want.
Yeah,
but no, it's the Cowboys versus Indians.
Oh
things
yeah,
we talked about.
there was a video, and this person was like, "Yep, no, there's videos of Hamas soldiers going through, and they live streamed this, and they went into a family's house and they shot an infant in the face. Do you condemn that?" And they're like, "No,
it's nuanced.
It's nuanced, and this was propaganda." And I'm like, "What? No, Hamas,
by Hamas.
Hamas released
Hamas
this
propaganda
because they were saying this was a good thing."
Of course, it's like they killed kids and cut off their heads, and that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Very good thing. Apparently, that's it's amazing that people are so they feel so free to be able to say this online, and yet now, imagine that kind of stuff inciting violence against Israelis and promoting the idea of genocidal talking points against an entire group of people Israelis, but Facebook and Google and YouTube, they won't ban that, but they'll ban a manifesto from a person that's already dead, that the crime has already been committed, like that. Oh, that's not. We can't spare any expense to ban that. But people on protesting and saying that they want to kill all Jews, everywhere. Oh, well, hold on, free speech here, people, free speech. Everyone back down a little bit. So, little ceasefire.
Yep.
Got to keep it real.
Got to keep it real. All right. So continuing on this story,
I'm glad that they're doing the ground invasion.
Yeah, Yahya Sinwar, he was Israel's most wanted and called the dead man walking by Benjamin Netanyahu, orchestrated the terror group's October 7th massacre. So they stormed in full coordination between land, air, and sea forces. They're maneuvering on foot, armored vehicles with tanks, along with military engineers from all directions. They have one target, Hamas terrorists. Yep, good.
Yeah.
Civilians evacuate northern Gaza as Israel opens up humanitarian corridor. So civilians continue to evacuate from the northern Gaza Strip to the south as IDF forces have opened the daily corridor for several hours, allowing safe passage for those who want to flee the fighting against Hamas. I had this one guy, and he was trying to because I'm like, oh yeah, Israel's trying to evacuate civilians. They're trying to only target the north. And he's like, well, they committed several strikes against the south. And I'm like, they've done hundreds of strikes against the north, and they've committed 3 strikes against the south. And you're trying to say that they're targeting civilians because of this? And he's like, how are they not? And I'm like, are you serious?
Yeah, these people are dense.
You have there's no intellectual credibility there.
You know what you got to do? You got to find those because they come up all the time. You got to find those either pictures or videos that they've shown of Hamas. They set up rocket launchers next to playgrounds.
Oh yeah.
If you show people something like that, be like, tell me that this is not intentionally putting civilians at risk and intentionally hoping that they get hit in a crossfire when you put rocket launchers right next to a school or right next to a playground.
Oh,
they want their civilians to die. Do you have it? Because I hear
I'll get an image.
Ben Shapiro's doing a great. Yeah. Ben Shapiro's been doing a wonderful job of showing this kind of stuff. Right, what you got? So tell us about this. What's going on?
IDF publishes aerial image. So this is from October 22nd, which is a few weeks ago. Aerial images
fine.
of Hamas rocket launchers near schools. So this is a kindergarten school. This is where they're launching the rockets.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot tell me that
not even in the vicinity.
No,
like literally next to the wall.
They have the rocket. Like there was a great picture there was a political cartoon that somebody was referencing, and it was a kindergarten classroom in Gaza, and the kindergarten teacher's like, ignore the man with the rocket in the corner. He's not there. And I'm like, yeah,
Jeez.
that's exactly what this is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh yeah, no, this, like the teachers know that man is using you as human shields.
Yep.
And the man with the rocket knows, but the children are basically just like, oh no, he's fine.
Yeah. It's like we were talking about earlier. People keep like throwing out the term like war crimes, like, Israel is like guilty of war crimes. I'm like, guess what? Hamas is guilty of war crimes when they do this.
Yeah.
Intentionally putting your civilians in harm's way, or using civilians as cover for your like army, for your military. That's also that's war crimes. That's legitimate intentional war crimes, not accidental war crimes. That's intentional war crimes. Whereas Israel, like I've seen so many things during this entire debacle that I'm like, you know what? It would take a mountain of evidence to convince me that Israel's the bad guy in this whole situation. It would. There's just so much stuff, from the idea of from all the evidence of them trying to warn people, from taking all these efforts to try to avoid civilian casualties, from like the precision airstrikes, from like the strikes where they shake the building before they fully destroy it, like things like that. And you're just like give me a break. Like, you guys are basically just terror simps. Okay? You're just apologists, defenders for terrorism. And the whole ceasefire talking point that they're doing is nothing more than give the terrorists time to regroup and rearm so that they can fight more effectively. You're pro-terrorist. Okay? If you really care about the Palestinian people, you would call for Hamas to surrender. That's what you would call for. Not for Israel to do ceasefire, but for Hamas to surrender, and for Hamas to release all hostages, and for them to stop fighting. Because Hamas is not the good guy here. And I'm kind of sick and tired of people trying to argue like they are. Like, oh my gosh, it's insane. People are nuts right now.
Oh, absolutely nuts. All right, but it's not just nuts with Hamas in Palestine. So, from the Jerusalem Post, anti-Israel protesters vandalize White House gates, try and scale fence. So this is
enemies at the gate. Enemies at the gate.
Yep. Oh yeah, it's insurrectionists. So, pro-Palestinian protesters appear to be threatening to storm through the White House fences and threatening Secret Service agents.
Quick correction. Pro-Hamas demonstrators.
Yeah, pro-Hamas. Let's watch the video. They're safe.
Fucking cowards! Loser! Shine! 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 You feel better? Shine! Shine!
Yeah. As soon as they started rocking that fence, they should have tear gassed him. Because that
no, more important. Do you see what they were doing? They were taking down that banner or whatever they had, like the cloth or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I can kind of tell why, because that is a gigantic security risk. Because they can't see what's going on behind it. What's behind it. And these people, if they're crying you took down our banner, I'm like, and you have thousands of people all over the world taking down hostage pictures.
Yeah.
And you have the nerve to be like, how dare you take down our stuff? Okay. A little double standard here.
A little double standard. Standard.
It also looks a little insurrectiony, Stephen. I don't know if that seems a little insurrectiony to you.
Yeah.
Very
Jumping
very
and shaking the
interesting.
gates. You know, just
Mhm.
really minor stuff. No issues.
Oh, and a little lower, they're also defacing public property. You
Yep.
see that too?
Mm-hmm.
If you like scroll down.
Oh, another video?
Yeah. Scroll down. Oh no, wait, you're on
I'm
this is on Twitter?
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
on
it linked to the Twitter video.
Go back to the article. They had like the other thing.
Oh,
like
and they're
a god-
defacing. Yeah, they draped
Yeah, they're
Benjamin
defacing.
Franklin statue in a
Yes.
Palestinian rag.
Do you remember how people got so completely bent out of shape?
Oh, about the Terry Fox?
The Terry Fox, and they didn't even deface it. They literally put like some
They
things
put a Canadian
over
flag over it.
How dare you put a Canadian flag on a Canadian hero?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What a horrible crime.
people. Yeah.
Seriously, the worst people ever.
But actually horrible people. So Upper East Side cafes, baristas all quit in protest over Jewish owners' support of Israel. As
This
customers
actually had
now
a nice
line up
story.
around the block to show their support. Yeah, I would totally go if I was there in New York.
If
So
this happened in Calgary, I'd be like all over
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I will buy coffee for all of my friends.
Yes. Upper East Side Cafe's baristas. So the owner of Cafe Aron, Aaron Dohan, was left short-staffed Tuesday morning after his baristas quit because he supported Israel. He displayed an Israeli flag and started a fundraiser for Magen David Adom, the Israeli Red Cross. Since the October 7th attacks, instead of closing for the day, the cafe is now busier than ever with customers lined up around the block to show their support.
Right on, bro.
So Dahan, wow, he's 25 and he owns it. Great. Said a total of 5 baristas walked out since October 7th, in which Hamas slaughtered 1,400 Israelis. And the business owner displayed an Israeli flag at the cafe and started a fundraiser for the Israeli Red Cross. Our staff was young. They think they know everything. Liberal, college educated. Dahan, who is Jewish, told the New York Post on Tuesday. So they think we're supporting genocide. We're supporting colonialism. They know the keywords, but they don't really know what they mean. Oh, so these are videos of the people attending.
Oh, sweet. Okay. I don't know if you can play it. Does it have sound?
Guys, I just came down the block from my office to grab coffee at my favorite cafe, Cafe Aron. I'm with Peggy, who's the owner's mother, and something terrible happened today. Most of her workers quit on her, and they didn't know what they were going to do. Peggy, just tell us a little bit what happened.
So I got some emails this morning saying that all your baristas are quitting. And Aaron said to me, Mom, because he's doing an event, Mom, just close the cafe. I said, I'm not closing it. We'll get a whole group of people. And we came in here and we're just helping Aaron make cold brew and coffee and espressos. And there's a line around the corner. So
There's a line around the block.
Thank you for supporting
Nice.
They tried to shut you down, and it did just the opposite. Israel comes together when we're being pushed into a corner. You could support.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
that is good.
But by the way, the most dangerous and the most intolerant people in North America, in the West, basically, are everyone in the leftist coalition. Everyone. Like, it's not even close, man. Like you and I, we're talking about left wing versus right wing violence. I can't tell you how many left wing protests that I've seen legitimately dangerous people to the point where I was a little concerned for my safety. You've seen this, I've seen this, various places. But how often have we actually seen right wing violence of legitimate unprovoked and particularly unjustified violence? I barely see it. I don't think I've ever seen it. Anything close to that. It's amazing to me that people think that the most dangerous people in this country are the people who are who do not support this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's insane. I think it's awesome. I'm seeing some really good stuff in New York because my favorite one from before this was that remember the guy, the Muslim guy was tearing down hostage things on street corners. That New Yorker was like, "Oh, I'll mess you up if you touch another one." It's like, "Oh,
yeah."
Okay.
He's like, "This is my property," and he's like, "You put another one of these posters on the ground, and I'll put you on the ground."
Oh,
and I'm like,
"Man, I'll buy you a beer, bro. I will buy you a beer."
Oh, it was funny because Ben Shapiro's like, "If that guy is watching, just hit me up, and I'll take you out for dinner anytime." And I'm like, "Yeah, I would totally do that."
But it's amazing though. Like, remember, like this guy in this coffee shop. What did he do? He put up a Israeli flag.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's it. That's it. We're walking out of here.
Enough.
You put up an Israeli flag. You're not allowed. We can have our beliefs. We can put our Palestinian flags everywhere we want. But the second somebody puts up an Israeli flag, oh, that's it. It's all over. You're horrible. Canceled. You're horrible. You're horrible. Like, these people are not like they're anti-liberal.
Not,
They're like, my way or I hurt you. Exactly. That's how they work.
They are.
Yeah.
So this we're gonna move quickly because we
got to finish up.
We said we would try and finish a little later, and then it's just like we get talking, so it's a problem.
Talking to people. Okay, let's finish up. Go on.
So,
do it.
Obama's claim: we're all complicit in Israel-Hamas war sparks outrage online. He is complicit. Yes, you are complicit, former President Obama. So, in an interview with the alumni of his administration on Pod Save America, Obama offered his opinion on the ongoing war with the initial attack that killed 1,400. What Hamas did is horrific. There's no justification for it. Actually, I got to do another of ours. And what is also true is that the occupation and what's happening to Palestinians is unbearable. And what's also true is the history of the Jewish people that may be dismissed unless your grandparents or your great-great-grandparents or your uncle or your aunt tell you stories about the madness of anti-Semitism.
You sound way more like Bill Cosby.
I know, it's like it goes from Barack to Bill. I'm just going to do Bill's just because screw you, Obama. And what is true is that there are people right now that are dying that have nothing to do with what Hamas did.
All Hamas wants, it's a pudding cup, a jello pudding cup.
It's a pudding cup.
That's what they want. Just give them the pudding cup, and everything's happy.
So from the important statement is, he said, if you want to solve the problem, then you have to take the whole truth. Then you have to admit nobody's hands are clean. That all of us are complicit to some degree. Yep, that's totally BS.
You specifically, because you're the idiot who basically
donated and sent money to Iran.
Yeah, you dummy.
Because only an idiot sends money to Iran.
That's like what Trudeau did when they got caught, cheering that Nazi in Parliament. Mm-hmm. He's like, we all
of us, all MPs are complicit.
All of us are complicit.
It's like, no.
It's like, you're a moron. Get out of office.
Well, yeah, because it was like, guys, like you introduced him, and the MPs applauded him. Because
you're responsible
it's not
for security.
Their job for doing security or to background check your guests.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are some people, which are pretty obvious, that you do background checks on them. Like, I remember back when Notley was in charge, and we had an issue, like, there was, they brought over Kathleen Wynne. And some Conservative Party members were like, I'm not standing up for her. She ruined Ontario. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's so rude. And he's like, no, it's not.
Did. That's factual.
Wynne ruined Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Ford isn't that great, but there's...
I mean, difference between somebody starting and keeping a fire going, it's like not bothering to continue to fan the flames.
Yeah. It's like, well, she poured gas on the fire, and he's just like, well, I'm not going to put it out.
Yeah. But that's better than somebody stoking the flames.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. Speaking of stoking the flames, let's talk about this post-political story.
Hamas supporter toolkit reveals coordinated effort behind campus anti-Israel protests. Yeah, that's not surprising.
Are you telling me, Stephen, that these things are not just organic? They didn't start by themselves?
Yeah. So near-identical pro-Hamas rallies have sprung us on college campuses and in cities across the U.S., leaving many to question who's behind the seemingly organized effort. Within our lifetime, a pro-terrorist activist group dedicated to the destruction of Israel published a toolkit for terrorist supporters to plan and execute the rallies. So this is the toolkit. So the Post-Millennium obtained a copy of the toolkit, which states, in recent days, the Palestinian people have launched an operation dubbed the Al-Aqsa Flood that has shaken the foundations of the Zionist state and inspired the world that liberation is possible and its hour is near. The group stated this toolkit is the product of nearly a decade of hands-on practice, experience, and lessons that we've earned from our time organizing in NYC. So, yep. So, WOL, within our lifetimes, named from its members' desire to see Israel's destruction within their lifetime.
Israel's destruction.
Destruction.
Not a Palestinian state, not freeing
Yep.
Palestine, not letting people roam freely. It's river to the sea,
Yep.
full on annihilation, genocide. Like it's amazing to me that these people, like they say genocide so freely, even though like only one side wants genocide. But like no, they're both the same. They're both they both want genocide. It's just different kind of genocide.
Yeah.
Just slow, methodical, and quick cut off head.
Cut off
genocide.
head. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But
Like I had a real fetish for cutting off heads,
Mhm.
especially little kids.
Yeah. But
I'm the
speaking
good
of
guy.
dishonesty,
I'm
so from Chaya Reichik, who is the person behind Libs of TikTok.
Yeah,
So
Chaya.
this is NBC stealth edited this article after backlash. They initially reported as a Jewish man just died after hitting his head, leaving out the fact that he was actually killed by a pro-Palestinian protester.
Yeah, like but Stephen, the media never lies.
They never lie.
They
Man dies after hitting head during Israel and Palestinian rallies in California.
After hitting head.
Yeah, it
It's
says
fine that
he
he
fell.
hit his own head.
It gets even actually a little more dishonest in the tag. He fell and struck his head, and then they edited it. He was killed in an altercation at dueling pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian rallies in California.
Oh, okay. So he's killed in an altercation. That could have been anybody. Could
Yeah.
have been the
And then even
Jews
this, he
causing
said
problems.
fell and struck his head during confrontation with protesters. No, he was attacked with a megaphone, and then he fell unconscious, and then he hit his head, and that's what killed him.
Yeah. Remember when they argued in January 6th, like that officer got struck in the head
Oh,
by
yeah.
a fire extinguisher, and they're like, he died
Dishonest.
because of these poor, he died because of those evil January 6ers. It's like,
Evil.
actually, they didn't. He didn't actually die. It's
Yeah.
like, well, he was attacked. It's like, well, you could kind of almost argue that it was more of a scuffle than actual violent attack. It's like, well, it's like they're evil. They're just evil and all that. It's always something, Stephen. Always something.
Yep. Anyways, when has NBC been honest? But
Actually, yeah, you know what? I think Master Voltaire, I think he's right. I think that would actually qualify as a hate crime because it is a Palestinian or a pro-Palestinian supporter attacking a Jewish man. And I think, if I remember correctly, the rationale was he had an Israel flag, and that was it.
Yeah,
That was all he needed. Like, oh, you have an Israel flag.
No,
I'm going to beat you over the head with a
that's
megaphone.
exactly what inspired the attacks that happened in Calgary in 2013 that sent 4 people to the hospital, and the mayor at that time, Naheed Nentry, covered it up and told the police not to investigate, and it was only due to the work of Ezra Levant and Rebel News because they publicly put out and said, if there is not a police investigation into this, if these people are not charged, then I, Ezra Levant, and Rebel News will put out a bounty on them. Because this could not happen in our city, and then, and only then, did the city act and actually arrest these men whom they had a ton of footage
It
on.
was not even hard to find them. It's
No,
like
they took, it was a matter of a day before they were all arrested.
Yeah.
And it was you clearly were keeping tabs on them, but you didn't arrest them. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, by the way, Master Voltaire also said earlier, people who wear masks are obviously planning to commit crime. Okay, what do you think about this, Stephen? I think it was Florida. Maybe it was somewhere else, a state. They passed a law that said during protests, or particularly any legitimate protests or whatever, anybody wearing masks would be detained.
Yeah,
legitimate. That was the actual legislation, and I was like, yes, thank you, good. Because
these people want to commit crimes and they want to this is why when we went to that Million March for Kids and you were filming people, that's why they wanted to stop you, and that's why they were like, oh, we have to hide our identities, because these people
want to commit crimes,
and they are the only reason that they wear masks, the only reason that they cover their faces is because they want to escape. And that's why when in that event that I went to in March, virtually immediately after that trans individual punched that guy in the face, people swarmed around him and told him that he had to leave right away. so that he wouldn't be identified.
Yeah, because it's basically this is why I always say, the people who are truly part of like the transgressive left, like the dangerous like lunatic left, they are pro-criminal. And I would put like politicians like Justin Trudeau and all of his liberal supporters and all that, they're pro-criminal. Because and it's incredibly easy to draw a through line. They make easier and lighter sentences for criminals and more punitive and heavy-handed sentences and attacks on people who are trying to stop or trying to prevent crime. Like it's incredible. Like, so all of these things from that guy basically getting away with murder, like, and I'm hoping that like the fact that the guy died should be enough to basically be like, yeah, you need to be charged for murder. If that pro-Palestinian guy, I don't care how, oops, it was an accident, he wants to go. Like, no, you basically like hit somebody. You weren't being careful of the fact that this guy was elderly, or at least older, and he died as a result of your actions. That's at the very least, that's negligent homicide.
Yeah.
At the very least. And like, it's insane to me that these cities are basically like, showing their true colors by refusing to go after these people because they want it. They want to encourage the violence, and they want to basically always like show them, by the way, you can keep on being violent because we're going to make sure not to prosecute you and not to like charge you. So they're creating the violence that they claim to be like against. So unbelievable, man.
Yeah, I haven't found any. There's
video. Are you looking for the video?
I've been looking for the video of Paul. Oh, okay. So video 1. So,
Michael Sherry, good evening. A very disturbing story out of Thousand.
Okay, I gotta put it on the right screen.
You're gonna share it?
Well, I gotta put it on the right screen.
Okay.
So I don't. If it's a video of the incident,
it's a news
reporting, so it's probably gonna be.
I can't imagine it wouldn't.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be.
Okay,
fun, yeah.
so let's see if we can.
If it was
find
Twitter, I'd be a little more careful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Department, they're investigating this as a homicide. A bloody scene as we see an elderly man on the ground.
On the ground.
That man, identified as 69-year-old Paul Kessler, will later die of his injuries.
Any possible way.
Ventura County Sheriff's deputies are investigating the death as a homicide. Jewish leaders say regardless of where one stands on the crisis.
Oh. Is that
death as a homicide. Video? Jewish leaders say regardless of where one stands on the crisis in the Middle East, there should be no room for hate.
We're alarmed. We're angry.
Yeah, doesn't seem to be amazing footage of it. So, but even still, like, very clear what happened. And there is video of even as the guy's being carted away in, like, as he's lying on the ground, the protester that killed him is still chanting. And it's like, you are one callous, evil person.
And by the way, like here, this is the thing. We're seeing this all over the. And the horrible thing about this is that the Biden administration, all the left-wing media, they're saying what is the biggest danger? It's like anti-Islam, anti-Islam, Islamophobia. That's the biggest danger. That's the problem. That's where the issue lies, with the Islamophobia. When in reality, it's just like this is everywhere. People, but like that, I saw like recently, there was a video of turning, like Charlie Kirk was talking about like turning point, would say staff. I think there was a guy who worked for them.
The guy that got attacked.
The guy that got attacked, and he got attacked viciously.
Yeah,
viciously
kicked over and over,
and he got a concussion from it. Thank God, like the elderly couple that he was trying to help, like
they
didn't get targeted. But like this is like attacks on legitimately like peaceful people by violent extremists. Yes. And so you have like people like Chen Kuger and all these other idiots that have been on Timcast IRL recently who are trying to argue that like it's only the right that's violent, like not the left wing. Like the left wing are super peace loving like hippies. I'm like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like
if,
either
if the left
your
had
will-
access, like if the majority of these left-wing activists had access to more significant and more lethal weapons, then the death toll from left-wing violence would be astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
Like if this person wasn't armed with a megaphone and there was more than one protester, then yeah, he could have struck down several people. Like, that's just the unfortunate reality of how these people behave. Yeah, I did see a picture of the 50-year-old perp. Apparently he is I was looking, it said something about how he was a professor or something.
Yeah. I mean, you also see the video of the guy on the news program. Like, he's obviously old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and like, for example, whenever I'm outside or whatever, like, like if you're dealing with somebody who's elderly or a woman or a child,
yep,
I'm gonna treat them extremely differently than I would a guy like my age and size or something like that. Totally differently. Because I know that I'm stronger than them, and I'm more likely to hurt them than not. So I'm going to take a lot more precaution in that. But the problem is the people in these movements, they're so completely enraged with this anti-Israel, anti-white, anti-leftist, anti-conservative kind of like mindset, and they do such a big job of dehumanizing that they feel justified in hitting and violently attacking anyone that they don't like. This is basically like training for dehumanization. That's the kind of mindset that led to Riley Gaines, I think her name is, like the swimmer that she got
incident where she got trapped in the closet.
She got forced to hide in a closet because they were threatening her life.
Yep.
And now all of those idiots will claim oh, well, we didn't actually. I'm like, no, you were like basically terrorizing her by swarming her. And if you had the chance, I guarantee you several of you would have taken some serious shots on her that might have hurt her, if not killed her.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that the left does, and this is something I'm always like very like thoughtful of this whenever I'm in a protest, it's like you have to remember that the left does not fight with honor.
No.
They swarm. Swarming is this is why I know you were laughing when I said this. Police officers,
yeah.
Like when I was like, no, that's what they do. They swarm. They have no problem like hitting you all at once with like 6, 7, 8, or 9 of them. They will all basically take cheap shots at you. That's how they operate. This is how gang kind of violence works. They don't go for fair fights. They go for like cheap shots and easy targets and all that. I saw this one video once. It's on Twitter of like an actual confrontation between the Antifa types and then some really like solid right-wing conservatives standing up to them. Like the second that the Antifa did like anything stupid, the conservative guys, they went after them. They basically folded and buckled like little scared sheep. It was amazing. I'm like, they're not brave. They're cowards. Most of these people are all about taking the cheap shot, and the second they take the cheap shot, then they'll run away. And the second they get tracked down and run down by an actual strong man, they're like, oh my God, help me, I'm being attacked. And it's like they're not these are not noble people. These are cowardly people who want to take easy shots, easy cheap shots. And so, yeah, it's terrible. I hope that this guy gets charged. I really do. But sadly, we don't live in that kind of world right now where
things are fair and
the left is pro crime.
Yep, they are. All right. So, other things the left is favor of. As a former Canadian agriculture minister said, Trudeau's order for grocery stores to lower prices will result in empty shelves. Dang. Yep. Something else that's also interesting that should be mentioned. So, those of us who live in Canada, the Trudeau government recently ordered a pause on the carbon tax for heating oil.
Can you translate what that means?
So what that means is that heating oil is something which the maritime provinces in particular used to heat their homes in winter. In the prairies, heating oil does not work. It is not effective at the kinds of temperatures that we see here on the prairies. So this is a very region-specific carbon tax exemption so that he can continue to have a steady, stable voting bloc in the Maritimes.
Yeah, think of it like if it was like something like in the States. Imagine there's a kind of a fuel source that was very prominent in, like, let's say the Midwest, like in Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But like that wasn't used anywhere else. That's basically what our like fearless leader has been doing. And it was so blatantly obvious that it was a politically motivated move in order to salvage votes in the
it would be equivalent to the federal government saying, "Oh, like people don't have to pay taxes on fruit and vegetables that they buy in California, but they do have to pay taxes on fruit and vegetables that they buy from Georgia or from Florida."
Yeah.
That would be a very clearly politically aligned decision that is specifically targeting your political opponents.
Yeah, and that became very obvious when one of the liberal senators, when asked about it, she said that, well, we considered doing this for like the prairie provinces if there were more liberals elected there, so it's kind of on you. And that was like that was the that's it. The mask is off.
Oh yeah, it's one thing. It's actually been interesting since my twin brother, he works for a legal firm, and since he started working for the legal firm, he's actually partnered fairly closely with the UCP government, and now his firm is working with the UCP government to immediately blockade this act and appeal to the Supreme Court, saying you cannot do this on a very specific regional basis, only to appeal to your own supporters. And so because of the action that they're taking with the UCP government, the Supreme Court might be looking to overturn this, hopefully before the end of the year.
Quickly.
So, yep.
I hope that's the case, because
I hope that for sure as well.
Again, it all comes down to the idea of equal under the law. You can't play favorites and when it comes to law.
Yep.
And that's what they're easily doing. So Canada's a gigantic like tire fire, like a used tire fire.
So if Trudeau, if grocery stores, if the companies created the means for lowering the price of food as a plan for empty shelves, because if the companies are first to lower their prices, the CEO of Superstore, Loblaws, I believe, had a fairly good picture for this, and he's like, okay, here's a bag of potatoes, and he's like, this is the money for shipping, this is the money for handling, this is the money for this, and he's like, and this half a potato, this is our profit margins, and then this goes to our shareholders, and then this is what we keep, and it's basically a quarter, I think it was an eighth of a potato. And he's like, and you think that if we lower prices, that's going to fix if we take away that eighth of a potato, that's going to lower your prices? Really? Are you insane? And so now, if they're going to be doing that, if the federal government steps in and forces them to lower prices, then they cannot make money off of it, and we will have to shutter grocery stores. And then, of course, the entire supply chain will be wrecked beyond all measure.
The Trudeau government is a perfect example of the Simpsons episode where they're all trying to dig for treasure, a whole bunch of town people they're trying to dig for treasure, and all of a sudden they're like, oh wait, we're in a hole, we've been had, how do we get out of here? We're too deep. Let's dig our way out. Chung, 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 and they just keep digging.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's basically the Trudeau government. Everything they do is making everything worse. The whole thing with the grocery stores, that was a political stunt.
Yep.
Anybody who's actually not a first order thinker, somebody who realizes that wait a second, how are you gonna? That doesn't solve the problem because you're mischaracterizing the actual cause of the problem. Everyone who knew that knows that's a terrible idea. That's not going to solve the problem. It's only going to make the problem 10 times worse. But no, it's a political tactic by the prime minister to basically try to be like, it's not my fault you're paying so much for food. It's those greedy, like, robber baron grocery stores. They're to blame.
Yeah.
It's like, if Canadians were actually smart, they'd be like, you're an idiot, get out of power.
Yeah. If they were actually smart, they would have kicked him out back in 2019 or maybe last year, but nope. Yeah. Oh no, not last year, in 2021.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely nuts that this guy has been elected 3 times.
Well, it's the same kind of thinking that makes you wonder. Like Chicago's a dumpster fire of like leftist policies come to fruition, and they get rid of like
they get rid of
what was it? What was your name? That crazy black lady? I know you know what I'm talking about, right?
I know, I see her face in my mind.
Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot. They got rid of Lori Lightfoot. They're like, oh,
she's horrible. And then who do they elect? They basically elect the person who has almost the exact same or worse policies.
But he's worse. And I hate to say it, but like Steven Crowder had a great impression. He's like, you want more crime? You got it. You want more taxes? You got it. Ain't nothing gonna change. It's like like exactly what they do. Like, yep, they're gonna give you more of the same. You like basically like not being able to go out at night. You got it. More of that crap. It's like, yeah.
All right. Well, last thing we're gonna talk about tonight is
finish up here.
Something that's gonna happen in 2024. So Tucker Carlson will interview Alberta Premier Danielle Smith at a live show in Calgary in the beginning of 2024. Yay! Another live show that we can show up outside because the ticket prices are going to be a lot of money.
Yeah, but like, to be fair, like Danielle Smith, people who don't know, Danielle Smith used to be a very prominent podcast,
radio host,
or, like radio host personality.
Yeah, because she used to be on 660, I believe.
Yeah, and she used to do her own like actual radio show where she used to thing. She used to do some podcasting. Mm-hmm. She's been on a million podcasts.
Yeah,
and this is before she.
Interesting thing to note. I was talking to my dad about this. So not about this meeting between Tucker Carlson and Danielle Smith, because that was just announced today, but in relation to the UCP. Mm-hmm. So this weekend was the UCP AGM.
Mm-hmm.
You and I should go next year.
Yeah, you think so?
We should. Well, just because
you have to be a member, though,
you have to be a member of the UCP, yes, which I believe is $15 a year.
Oh, who can afford $15 in this economy?
Yeah, who can do that?
I know, it's like a Big Mac meal.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like it's networking. It's a lot of like I have a few people that I know who went, and it's like, yeah, that would actually be really cool to do. Because
down for that?
Yep. And you get to vote on policies. So I haven't seen the results of the UCP annual general meeting election, like the policy votes. Mm-hmm. I know there were some really interesting things that they voted on.
I know one that definitely went past was the policy that said like they wanted to basically require parental consent.
Yes,
to do any
definitely kind of pro parents.
Any trans thing is like, nope, you got to ask for consent from the parents. I'm like, yes. Now she did say like in an interview that well, it's not a it's a mandate. It's not like legally binding or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, yeah, I gotta do that. It's politicizing. You gotta like say something to the reporters or whatever.
Oh, they don't have. I want to see if there was a. Well, I guess there's the UCP. Okay.
Oh, you want to look at the actual policies that they passed?
Yeah, but I'd have to go hunting for it. So if I find it, then we'll cover it. But just nothing. I don't want to spend an enormous amount of time on the show just trying to find the policies.
Yeah. I think so far I'm pretty happy with Danielle Smith.
Oh yeah, no,
she's been great.
Way better than Kenny. Certainly better than Notley. Then again, Elmo. I think I posted this back in 2016. Be like, Elmo would make a better prime minister than Justin Trudeau.
I would elect a golden retriever.
Yes.
To be prime minister instead of Trudeau.
I would elect a rock.
Yes, because at least The Rock
wouldn't
would
be able
not
to do
pass
anything.
bad policies.
Yep.
I'd be like, oh, like it's like, what has The Rock done this week? It's done nothing.
It's
good.
done nothing.
Let's keep it that way.
Good.
Good.
We have
Let's-
elected
no
a
more
Rock.
Rock. No more Rock.
All hail Rock.
It's like
Not
that's
the
a better
Rock.
record.
He's a hard dem.
It would have a much better record than Justin Trudeau ever
Oh, yeah.
would. Know that.
Yep. No
Oh my
corruption, no scandals.
Yep.
Somebody painted The Rock and be like,
No gaffes. It wouldn't applaud for Nazis
yeah,
and
no.
blackface.
You know,
Like,
hey, the worst thing would be somebody might have picked up The Rock and tucked it in a Nazi, but you know.
That's right. But I mean, even that would be a positive. That
Even
would
worse,
actually be
shrunken head from Beetlejuice.
I would vote for that over
over Justin,
over
yeah.
Trudeau.
Yeah.
I would totally vote for that.
Yeah.
That'd be
Anyways,
so much better.
it's been 2 hours and I need to get up in 6. So
Boys gotta sleep.
Boys gotta sleep. Boys gotta sleep. Anyways, gonna sign us out. So we are the Shrewd Dudes Podcast. If you want to find us on our video content, you can check us out at YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. You can also check us out at our website at theshrewddudes.com or our text platforms at Facebook, Gitter, Twitter, and that's it.
I love how you just announced it, like, you're gonna sign us out. Like, I'm gonna walk out the door. I'm gonna get in bed.
Yes.
I'm going to fall asleep. Just gotta
I
announce
will. Yes. I will brush my teeth.
it. I will brush in circular motion, counterclockwise.
I will use this type of toothpaste.
That's right. Ooh,
Yes.
that 2-ply toilet paper. My wife really loves me.
Yes, I shall shoot the fly.
That's right.
So
Good
here at the
job.
Shrewd Dudes Podcast, we always like to remind you, why be rude when you can be shrewd? We will see you on Thursday for our regularly scheduled live stream. And Ark and Noel, you are joining a little bit late because we're just signing off. And I have no idea what you're saying because it's in Cyrillic. So maybe next time, bud. Maybe next time. We'll Again, Cyrillic. English!
What is that? Is that Russian or
It's either
Ukrainian?
Russian or Ukraine. It's a Slavic language, and I don't know how to speak them.
Oh, okay.
I certainly don't know how to read them. Slava Boho, baby. Slava Boho.
That's right.
All right.
Whatever that
We will
means.
see you on Thursday, regularly scheduled live stream, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. Until then, have a great day. And as always, God bless.
Right.